This video is about why my hair transplant is better than yours. The thing is, not everyone's hair transplant, even done by the same surgeon or great surgeons, turns out the same. I was watching my friend Matt Dominant's channel the other day. He's got one of the best channels about hair loss on YouTube. It's where I get a lot of information that I'm updated on. So I really appreciate Matt's channels. Make sure you're subscribed to that channel. And I was watching Matt's second FUE hair transplant. And it's interesting because Steve and I were watching together and I was thinking, man, this is Matt's second FUE hair transplant, but looking at the back of his head, we're probably in a pretty similar position both now. And I've had 3 FUT hair transplants and 2 FUE hair transplants. So I've had 5 hair transplants and Matt has had 2. And yet our donor hair is actually probably pretty comparable. So if we were gonna each go get another hair transplant, we would probably have about the same amount of donor hair left. I might even have a little more than Steve as well. Isn't like a great hair transplant candidate naturally. So he's kind of in a similar type of position. And I think it's important for you guys to understand that going into your hair transplant, that if your hair transplant doesn't look like mine, even after a couple of procedures, it's not necessarily your doctor or the type of hair transplant. It could just come down to your donor hair. So that's why it's so important to get this evaluated from the very beginning.
A couple different things to look at. Number one is, yes, David has very strong donor hair. That's a great start, all right? David is using the finasteride as a preventative that also adds to the caliper of his hair, even in the donor zone. David had 3 FUT procedures. Now, here's the part that always turns into an FUT versus FUE somehow in every video.
And let me show you guys real quick just my donor, my head as it currently is. I have no product at all in my hair whatsoever. I didn't even take a shower yesterday. Like 1 or 2 spots where it's like a little bit thin on the top, but overall, I would say and this is obviously the worst position anyone could ever look at my hair from. And it's still, I think your average person isn't going to think I've really had any hair loss,
So what I was talking about in regards to, the strategy, right? So first we want to pick the right doctor, the right clinic. We want to get somebody that's not going to transect follicles and someone that's going to ruin a bunch of your donor. That's my story. So I had the weak, poor donor hair, along with starting so early, a lot of my donor was destroyed. By today's standard, if you choose the wrong doctor, wrong clinic, or do the wrong procedure, let's say you're a Norwood 5 or a Norwood 6 or a 7. You're not an FUE candidate by a standard of ethics. Yes, we can still do FUE because you say, well, I don't care about the back and I just want a hairline. But we're talking about David and then the other YouTuber that he just mentioned and kind of comparing their donor zones. David had 3 strip procedures to start. That moved a boatload of hair. That gave him an amazing area. It's a surface area issue. And then we closed that. So now there's nothing missing in the back. So now you're comparing someone that's had 2 FUE procedures only, where it was a significant amount of grafts harvested in 2 procedures, versus someone that's had many more grafts harvested plus 2 procedures of FUE.
So it looks like Matt can pretty much go down about as far as he wants. I mean, if you go down to, I guess it'd be a 1 guard, like the very shortest, you are going to see like a little bit of a over harvested kind of look, but your average person is not going to actually notice that whatsoever. So the only person I think that's going to notice that is someone who knows a lot about hair transplants. Most people just go, yeah, their hair is a little thinner in the back. So me, if you cut my hair with a 1 guard, it's going to be very obvious that I have these lines in the back of my head. So that is an obviously advantage that he's got.
Yeah, and that comes down to that same conversation we always have about sacrifices, right? In my day, which was not a decade, a generation before David's day, you sacrificed the fact that you were not going to wear your hair short anymore in the back. What I think happens today is a lot of the young guys I call it drinking the Kool-Aid. Now, keep in mind, I'm not anti-FUE by any means. My last procedure was FUE, and I'm a huge fan of FUE because I think it's an awesome procedure for the right patient. So in David's case, his donor hair is strong. He's had a lot of hair moved to cover his whole scalp. That's the surface area. And then the FUE has done that little kind of nitpicking in between and gave him an amazing hairline. And that's really what it's supposed to be used for. So that's a whole part of this conversation based on just David and a couple other people, including myself. But what we want to talk about now is the fact that everybody has different caliper hair. Everybody has different tinting color to their hair.
Caliber meaning how thick the individual hair actually is. And my hair is, I think especially after the Zoflo and now on the oral minoxidil and finasteride, it's gotten now very thick. Like each individual strand of my hair is really thick.
One of the things that I've kind of contributed to as far as Dr. McGrath goes, and I talk about other doctors as well, but I worked with his marketing person and his website and said, listen, and he agreed, we need to put a bunch of kind of average type donor hairs on there as well. This is a hilarious story. So this marketing guy comes into Austin, Texas to meet Dr. McGrath. He gets in the car and it's an Uber driver and he says, hey, he's like, you're going to 2500 West William Cannon. I'm a patient there. Wow. And the marketing guy says, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I mean, this is the marketing guy. He's like, that's fantastic. So he says, yeah, they got me on this medication and it's really helped my hair. And he's like, that's fantastic. He goes, yeah, I'm looking at some doctor in like Barcelona to do my hair transplant. And the marketing guy's like, what are you talking about? And the part of the story that is interesting to me is the guy specifically said he looked at Dr. McGrath's website. He saw some guys on there that were, okay, but he saw some guys that were like, they're okay. And then he looked at this other doctor's website in Barcelona. It was like every single one had thick, strong, ropey, dark, masculine hairlines. And the marketing guy's like, okay. Like, so you may not be that guy. I mean, obviously you know what I'm talking about is everybody's different. You do not want a doctor to cherry pick his patients where you're going to think that you're going to end up like them. And I have to throw this out because it's on most of our videos that we've shot over the last 10 years is I wanted John Travolta's hair when he was 19 years old with my first hair transplant. And that was never going to happen if I had 100 transplants. So that's pretty much what it's about. It's everybody's different. Do not set up your goals so high that you're going to be disappointed. Right procedure, right doctor, and then you have to be able to appreciate like who you are, where you're from in the world, and what your hair type is.